One here at City Hall and at home. We will open the Board of Commissioners work session June 11th, 2026 at 6:09 PM. Mr. Ross, could you please call the roll, please?
Mayor Anderson,
Aye. I mean,
Vi-
here. Sorry. I'm already saying aye. Oh, my goodness.
Vice Mayor McDonald,
Present.
Commissioner Buffalini,
Present.
Commissioner Hall,
Present.
Commissioner Roberts.
Present.
Thank you. Do we have any citizens' comments tonight?
We have one tonight, Mayor. It's Miss Sheila Cook.
If you would, please state your name, address, and if you live in the city or county.
Sheila Cook, 7422 Swindon Boulevard. I live in the city of Fairview. Today, anyway. So this is questions for the BOC. I know I just say my 3 minutes and then y'all answer whenever during this thing. It'd be nice. So my question is for the past fiscal year, 25-26, for BOC. I know you each get a community development of $5,000. I'd like to know for the last year, and so the citizens would too, who did you give the money to? How much, in case you gave it to two places and split it? And what was it used for exactly? That's one piece. Travel and training, out of last year, how much did you use and what was the training? And then uniforms, how much did each of you spend on uniforms? Or do you plan to by end of this month, I guess? That's all I got, thanks.
Thank you. Item number 3 is old business, 3A, ordinance 2026-09, an ordinance of the City of Fairview, Tennessee, adopting the annual budget and tax rate for fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2026, and ending June 30, 2027. Mayor Ryle.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Commissioners. Before you, we brought two different budgets and also a comparison on revenue to expenses. But first of all, I'd like to thank each of you meeting with myself and Mr. Knox individually to get your input, so to help us get a little better understanding where we need to head. I hope we can define that more tonight during this workshop. The reason, and it's really something I've used over time, and I don't know if it's financially correct, but it sure has worked for me, on this revenue to expenses comparison, it helps build in trends that we've had. As you can see, we went back to fiscal year 21 with the audited numbers, used fiscal year 22, 23, and 24, and 25 audited, also blended it in with the amended budget that you passed about a month ago, along with the initial budget that we brought back last week without a tax increase. If you follow across there, it's not defined well enough to know what each line item has, but it's just really a general comparison of revenues and expenses. But the thing that I'd like getting out of there that would help us better understand our true fund balance was taking the restricted funds, basically the borrowing out that was in the budget, removing that so you can see what a true unrestricted fund balance is, and basically how much money do you have in your savings account. And as you can see on the bottom line, with this budget as presented with no cuts and no tax increase, it really got us into a serious situation down to about 3.5 million, which percentage-wise out of a $10.5, $11 million budget, that doesn't sound like a lot, but as we know, percentages become less important as you move the dollars down. So again, with a budgeted number, I've typically had to explain to a lot of folks I've worked with, the budgeted number versus true cash you have in the bank because of our cyclical nature of us receiving revenue with property taxes and a lion's share of our sales tax coming at one point. If we get to that dollar amount, we're in a very dangerous situation, really probably at the end of the calendar year on that. So I just want to show that for display purposes. We know we did that budget for y'all last week as an exercise, but we did want to just display what that actually would do to fund balance, and we did not do that last week, but I want to share that with you. And before you have the two different budgets, one with roughly a 19-cent tax increase and one with 25 cents. There's some minor cuts and movement made in that, but at this point, if it's the will of commission, I'll let Mr. Knox go over that, and however y'all like to do it, or any questions y'all may like to ask him or me on that. But thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to point out, this is for discussion only. There will be no vote. So, Mr. Knox, you can go ahead and begin.
Like Mr. Rowell said, up at the top, if you look at the top right of each of the two packets that you got, the paper clipped ones, one has, you can tell which one's a 19-cent tax increase. The other one is 25. If you look at the where it says tax rate, new tax rate, you can identify them by that. The original proposed tax rate was for last year, what we would have went to had we not went down would have been 87.04. So even with the 25-cent one is only down to 84.04, so we're still saving 3 cents of what we would have went to last year. Other than that, going through there, I think it's our position that we're open to suggestions on each department.
So just to be clear to the citizens, we lowered the taxes, and we've had some significant events this year which led us to possibly need to raise them back up, but not to the point they were, so they're still lower than what they
Correct.
were.
It would have went to 87.04. We went down to 59.04. And then these two in front of you are 84.04 and 78.04.
Okay.
On the,
Question, go ahead.
sorry, I had one more thing. I just remembered it. On the fourth page of the 25-cent tax raise, you have a mostly blank page. Top left's the only thing on it. This is the surplus that we would have with the 25-cent. Comes out to 403,324. And on the application side, I just listed out what we would spend that on. The $243,000 is for the 2021 A bond. Look at the third page, will be the page. I apologize. The second page, under 300, that is the only fund that we are currently spending more out of than we would have revenue for at this moment. Obviously, you can't do that forever. So it would be our opinion that it would be best to take that out of 300, move that A bond payment, that $243,000 payment, into the 110 section, have that come out of the surplus, and then the remainder of that 403 go straight to the just a fund, and then we could put it in a separate account. However y'all would like to see that done, it's fine with me. Just save that for the FEMA payback. The total for that FEMA payback at 25%, that's saying that we don't get anything back from TEMA, only FEMA, would be around $675,000. I think it would be wise to save for that, because the whole reason we did that was to not touch the reserves. And if we don't save for that, we're gonna have to touch reserves for that FEMA payback.
Did we ever get the final bill about the
Not
cleanup?
where it's split up with the,
We still haven't gotten it.
not where it's split up where Parks is completely off.
I just would like to go back real quick. So either Mr. Knox or Mayor Ryle, one of you can help me with this. If we had not lowered the tax rate last year, then it would have been 87.04. So the taxes would have gone up because we had a assessment year and property values went up. So we lowered it to maintain the level of taxes that we were paying. And that's why the number was what it was last year, right?
Correct.
So we're raising it up to an amount that's 3 cents lower than it would have been. So still a raise in taxes if we do this at the highest rate that you're proposing, which is 25 cents. Either one of you also can answer this for me, please. If you take the storm out of the equation, would we still have to be raising taxes this year?
I believe so, yes.
Thank you.
Mr.
If
Knox,
you-
do you,
Go ahead.
the A bond, if we paid just the standard payment that would be due on that annually, when would that be paid off? Do you know?
I believe it's 2030.
So putting additional funds towards it if we had that, do you have any idea how early that would be paid off?
No, but you could do it roughly just by, I can look at that schedule real quick if,
I was just curious if you had,
Confidence,
if you don't have that tonight, I'm sure there's gonna be other questions that are more pertinent, but
I could look it up, it's gonna take me 5 or 10 minutes. You could roughly reduce it, it's $243,000 a year, so, or each year would cost. The switching those two, what I did is basically, there's not enough revenue in the 300 line item. The only revenue that comes from, or not 300 line item, the 300 fund, the only revenue from that is building permits, a portion of the building permits. So I'm just saying that there's not enough year over year. Eventually, it's decreasing. The balance of that is decreasing. If you move that 243 out, then we start increasing in that fund.
thank you.
It would be no different than if you put a portion of you could do it that way, or you could leave it in 300 and you could put a portion of the property taxes into the 300 fund. No difference either way you do that.
Since we just got these now and we haven't had a lot of time to look at them and kind of to keep the conversation alive, are there any big differences between what you've proposed in the 19-cent versus the 25-cent? And I'm really specifically also looking for information about city positions. So what might be different in these proposed budgets from last week when we talked about cutting about 16 positions with a 0% tax increase? What do we save as far as the people staffed in the city with 19? And what do we do with 25? And then what's the difference between the 19 and the 25, please?
Gotcha. Both the 19 and the 25, both of these have no reduction in staff. Both the 19 and the 25. The expenses are exactly the same. The only difference really is that we have an opportunity to save and balance all of our funds in the 25-cent. And the 19, we don't have the opportunity to save for that FEMA payment or stay balanced in the 300 fund.
Thank you. And if nobody minds, if I can ask another question, unless I don't want to hog the time. If somebody else has a
Are
question.
you staying on that topic, or are you going to a different
I
one?
was going to go to something else, so you're welcome to stay on it.
Real quick, with the 25-cent, is the money that's being set aside for the FEMA payback adequate, or are we still behind on what you would like to be setting aside for that?
If you do rough math, add that up real quick. So 3 years, assuming we get the Assuming that 3 years is the timeline for the FEMA payment, 160,324 times 3, we'll have 480 of the 675 needed. And that's assuming the worst, that we do not get any payment from TEMA. If we do get payment from TEMA, it goes from 25% to 12.5%, and that's 675 goes to 337.
And since you brought it up, we have still not heard any communication from the state on whether or not TEMA is going to be contributing anything towards that.
Correct. Ms. Jones and I have got the first portion of the FEMA process done. We got it done, I believe, about a month early, and the next thing we'll start is the second portion of that.
So just to reiterate, I believe the second part of that question that Commissioner Roberts asked was, what other significant cuts other than, or if there was to employees, what other significant cuts were there
In the 19
to the
25.
budget?
There is not any.
There are no other cuts?
No.
Mayor,
Commissioner Hall?
thank you. Ben, if we, as far as the final payoff on the removing the trees and limbs and stuff, and we get a big enough hit for the tree bank fund, since we did use the tree bank fund to pay off the park, could we utilize that fund then to help pay that off?
That part is already excluded from the total.
I know it is from the park, but would it be excluded from the final payoffs? If, in other words, if
Yes, sir.
TEMA wouldn't pay anything, then we would need
Right,
some
the
additional funding.
675 is based on the, they wrote it as a tax anticipation note, but on the bond essentially that we got from FEMA, the 675 is based on that, which excluded the park
Excluded.
portion, which was coming out of Tree Bank, yeah, so that, it doesn't affect that.
So the future, though, couldn't be used for it?
The portion of money that we're using from the Tree Bank that we use to clean up the park,
Right.
it doesn't have an effect on that 675.
But if we collect more, could we utilize that we collect on the tree bank money? Could we use that to?
Could we use the Tree Bank money to
Yes.
fund the 675? No,
Right.
sir.
That was a good question.
Sorry, I didn't understand what he was
That was a
asking
good
at first.
question, because we do anticipate, I think roughly another close to $500,000 going to Tree Bank in the next year. So, or maybe even sooner. So that was a good question to, if that was a
That was
possibility to
the
use
reason why
that
we
to
were
pay
only
the.
able to use that portion, was just for the park, was the restrictions on that.
Restrictions on
fund.
that is
Yes,
just
ma'am.
for the park and not for the community.
It can be used in the park or for landscaping on city property, but that didn't fit the,
Okay.
since it was in the park, that it fit
I
the
got
building.
you.
That,
I
yeah,
got you now.
that was a good question.
Since it wasn't city, all the rest of the cleanup was not city property, it couldn't be used for that.
That clarifies that, thank you.
So maybe I don't know if I heard, because it's hard to hear right. I don't know why the speakers are so low. Are we paying back the money that we used from the tree fund?
No.
So, okay, I thought that was the original agreement, was that we were going to replenish the money that we used from the tree fund,
I
clean the
bel-
park up.
I believe that the intent or the timing of when the tree bank fund will be replenished for what we took out of it will be when we receive our reimbursement from FEMA.
So that will be going back to the tree
But-
fund.
The portion of the reimbursement, if we get that, would, correct? Isn't
Well,
that what we
I see a lot
discussed?
of nods, yes and no's.
Well-
It wouldn't be tax money, it would be the reimbursement that we would get from the
Well,
government.
that's what I'm asking, but I don't see any way that
Well-
money's going back.
I think we're still a
There's
few
nothing in
years
the
out
budget
from
that,
that.
there's nothing in the budget that replenishes the tree fund. For what we take out of it, it's, from our talks with the companies, we do not have the final bills, but it's between 150 and 200 is what would come out of there. There's, I think, 570 is what I believe is in there. Right.
I was on the impression last time we all voted to use the tree fund was that we were going to replenish that money back to the tree fund.
From what I remember, we were, but it was after we got the reimbursement. So
And that
the
won't
first
be
funds would
happening
go
this
back.
year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's just not in this budget.
Not because we're choosing not to. FEMA's just not going to pay us back this year. It's still probably 2 or 3. I think that's probably an optimistic outlook.
The
It's
benefit
probably
of that was
best
that we
for
don't have to pay, that we didn't borrow that extra money
Right.
to pay on it.
We,
We wouldn't have to pay the interest on that portion of the money.
right. We used tree bank money to do the park cleanup so that we wouldn't have to borrow that and have interest paid on that amount of money. But it still leaves a pretty large sum in the tree bank. Plus, there's a significant amount about to come into the tree bank also. So it's going to be more than we need in that fund, even without, reimbursement.
Bree, could we also make the speakers louder up here? Because I can't hear Commissioner Hall or Vice Mayor McDonald when they speak. Thank you.
Any better?
Can you hear me? Oh, I guess everybody can hear me. Okay,
What about me?
cool.
So when I've been speaking with people the past week, I've spoken with a nice mix of different people from around Fairview, citizens who are just own a home but don't work in town, and people who own businesses, some people who build. And it was across the board the same answer. The answer was you have to raise taxes, but you also should mitigate how much that raise needs to go. And then we need to have a plan because we can't come back to this again. I agree with that 100%. I also heard a lot of sentiment that I agree with to save the staff positions at the park and not cut the programs. And when I was having one of my meetings, I was in the park and Bree came through with a classroom full of kids and they started playing down in the lake, and that's our community that's building, and that's building the future. And I think that there is a non-monetary value that the city offers through those services. And I think that this is something that everyone already knows. I'm not telling you something new, but I think it's important to put it out there into the record. The other thing is that public safety needs to be prioritized as well. I heard a lot of support for fire and police. And when I was turning in here today, I saw Big Engine 31 going down answering a call. And it's wonderful that we do have a department who can answer those calls. We're all safer and better for that and for having both of the departments that we have in fire and police and having our outpost station over on 96. Also, Public Works is still seen as routinely understaffed. And I know that we spent a lot of time talking about the chipper service last time. And again, that's not saving money. It's a workflow issue, but not really a money issue. But, if we wanted to look at trading off time, I guess we could do that. But I don't see that as something that's really in the budget per se as a cost saving. And I'm saying all this to say that the budget is relatively lean and we have the services we have, but they're not over the top. And so it's been very hard to think about areas to cut out of the budget without cutting something that we need. I think there are still things we can do to be lean, but I think that it's the debt services that are causing us the headaches that we have. And so What I'd like to prioritize based off of what I've heard from everyone that I've spoken with, and then I think what makes common sense is to think about how we can set our budget to get us upright, not just now, but I'd like to see a 5-year, 7-year. How are we moving forward and how are we prioritizing what we do as a city? What is the function of our city? And how do we move forward and what can we expect? And so however the board decides to go, I just wanted to make sure I was voicing what I'd heard this past week and my own thoughts after going through several exercises of my own and talking with Mr. Knox and Mayor Ryle. That those are the priorities. I'm happy to see some budgets here that don't cut our staff. When you think about positions and not people, that's one thing, and then we think about people, and that's a different thing. But every one of those positions represents a family, and every one of those positions is important to the work that we need to do. With that, we could also think about changes if we need to be creative, if we still need to do some cuts to mitigate the cost. So there might be some things that would make sense. And I'm curious after the conversations that Mayor Ryle and Mr. Knox have had with the board, if you have any suggestions in these budgets for ways to cut to help us get a little bit closer. You know, even if we cut, say, $75,000 out of something, that would give us that much more money to put towards a debt service and get us that much closer to our goal sooner.
I'm ready to respond. We can appreciate your input, and we've gotten great input from all of you, and we appreciate that. One general consensus we have not found yet, and I'll defer to Mr. Knox on that because I've sat through all the meetings except the one with Commissioner Hall. So there's a lot of things we can look at, but if the goal, and your wishes as a group is not to cut positions, there are some things we can go in there and fine tune and take a little harder look at. Now, our penny is valued roughly $65,000. I think we're using that as a rough figure right now. There's things we could go in there, and I'm pretty confident we could make some changes pretty easy to do that. But even in the long term, from the very reasons you mentioned, Commissioner Roberts, so it's not just about solving this year's problem. It's about solving fiscal year 28 problem and fiscal year 29, so we don't have to go through this exercise every year. And I mean this the most respectfully, you all had great comments, but there was no real consensus on just each department. You all had suggestions, and you also, I think you would freely admit there's some things as you admitted that like parks you don't want to see go, and but that has not been a consistent message from all 5 of you. So we really are seeking input tonight because we can make any budget work, even that most heinous one that we did last week. But a more realistic budget, I think we can get you some numbers in that. But if the goal is not to cut people, that sends us back with a real charge that's something we can look at. But again, it's going to get individual departments, and I know as good a job you do as part of the city, I know the emphasis on some changes to all 5 individually. So we'll have to find something we can all agree on. And I guess that's really kind of what we're looking to hear from y'all tonight.
Something that came up in conversations with me was hiring freezes. And I don't know what the board thinks of that, what that looks like. I think some positions we probably need to fill, like the city planner position. But if we could even talk about what that looks like. Has there been something that maybe you've seen in the past, Mayor Ryle, that where even for a year or two, if you lose positions that are not critical to the function of a department, then to hold on hiring, and you can't build a budget on it, but just as a matter of like fiscally conservatively, just kind of holding down the fort and not spending more money we don't have to spend until we can get ahead a little.
I think, again, I can easily look at it along with Mr. Knox and the rest of the staff. Creating new positions is not necessary at this point. and there's a conversation I think I've had with all of y'all. We can make decisions today from my standpoint, but having the pure analysis behind it that I could make a good long-term decision is not available to me right now. And as we discussed when I came on board, I think with y'all individuals, a group, I can do an analysis, but a department by department analysis I can do, but it's going to take several months to do that. And you look at some of the smaller departments, it may take a couple of weeks. Larger departments such as fire and police, they're probably minimum 6 weeks individually. We've all talked about doing and we've already engaged, at least with discussion with MTAS about a salary study. So again, I don't want to appear, and I'm not asking y'all to kick the can down the road. We'll take your suggestions and move forward with it. But for me and the staff and any outside help we get to do true analysis, we're probably honestly talking about through the end of this calendar year at minimum on that. So, but again, directly to your point, just from my discussions with department heads now, additional staff I don't think is needed. The only one that we did have that discussion with was Public Works. But if there's a move to rid ourselves of the chipper service, then the individuals that are having to spend an inordinate amount of time chipping, we can allow them to move in and do other jobs and then measure that workflow in about 6 months. And if there's a need in next year's budget to add staff, I'd be glad to make that recommendation at that time. But again, if we move away from the chipper service, I think we need to measure that before we add any more people.
Sure, thank you. I appreciate that, and I think that that decision is for you and Mr. Bratcher to think about with the department, not necessarily even at our level. And I wasn't necessarily talking about adding new positions, but if somebody were to retire or leave a position, maybe it doesn't need to be refilled in a future budget for a little while if it's not necessary. But I think I hear you saying that we've got a today problem with the budget today, which is the first turn in the direction, but then there will be ongoing analysis to maybe make sure that we are operating in as lean and efficient manner and doing the work that the city needs to be doing, updates from the way that maybe things have always been done.
And that's true. And again, it's not a reflection on how anyone has operated on the past, but it's like all of us, anywhere from our personal finances to maybe our personal and spiritual lives. Sometimes we need to take a big step back and just reassess. And I hope that's something that we have the opportunity to do here over the next 6-7 months, where I can bring y'all back a detailed analysis well before budget time next year, so we can start preparing for that. And just from the work, understanding these trends a little better, Mr. Knox has been a great help and an asset in all this. He's doing all the heavy lifting, but he can explain things to me that I understand to do trend analysis, and I think time will do a better job. But back to your original point, a hiring freeze, it would be, in my opinion, position dependent, but we would meet with each department if someone did leave, and if it's by attrition, and that'd be a great time just to micro-analyze that position if we need to add it or if we can wait 6 months or whatever. So no, I understand your point, and I think you're very correct.
Mayor,
Commissioner Hall?
thank you. I agree with Commissioner Roberts on possibly a hiring freeze, but except for Public Works, possibly one maintenance person, and of course we got the planner. And if we have any attrition in the meantime, not to be replaced unless the city manager considers it a critical position. Then one other thing I want to get back to is Commissioner Roberts mentioned something about 75,000. I think I've got half of that we can put toward that. One being the 25,000 that we get to give to charities, and another 1,500 that we get that the lady spoke about a while ago. That makes it up to I think I wrote down 32.5. So that's close to your 75, Commissioner Roberts. If that helps a little bit, toward some cuts. And that doesn't have to be a permanent cut. We can do it for a couple of years and see where we come from there. Thank you.
I think the hiring freeze would have to be a case-by-case basis, because if we lost police or fire, they're going to have to be replaced. So that would have to be a case-by-case basis. We can't just say we're going to have a blanket hiring freeze. Also, I've talked to Mr. Bratcher, Director of Public Works, several times, and he said that they're just overrun with trying to maintain all the chipping, and they can't get anything else done. That's where the two employees come in, and I feel like if we don't, like, if the board doesn't want to do away with it completely, maybe we could suspend it for a time being so that we can get that under control. They've got a lot of different things they have to do for the city, and when they're overrun with this chipping, it just keeps them way too busy to take care of the other, items that they have to take care of each week. So either suspending that or doing away with it altogether, that's one thing that I see is on my list of importance. Also, I feel like if they're freed up from that, they will not require the extra help that they're seeking. And that's not my opinion. That's from Mr. Bratchard himself. But as far as a hiring freeze, like I said, I just feel like that's a case-by-case basis where that would have to be analyzed as to which department it's coming from and the need for that position.
I would agree. I would agree with that. I think, in lieu of adding personnel to that department, just removing that burden, I guess, for lack of a better term, that takes up a significant amount of their time and allows them to focus on different things to where they don't need extra personnel. And in thinking about that too, I understand that there's certain citizens out there that the chipper service is something that they find valuable, and that's completely fair and understandable. And instead, just an idea, I'd like to get everyone else's thoughts on it, but instead of removing the chipper service completely, we would still retain the equipment, and we could potentially do a one weekend a quarter where Mr. Bratcher and the rest of that department set up out at the out parcel, to where just like you take your trash to the recycling center at the rec center, you could bring your brush to that location to where they are there just to chip it and dispose of it. A little sweat equity by the citizens to get that to them. It's less pressure on them, but it still keeps that service to a degree to where I guess it doesn't shock the system as much.
It's a great idea.
So ultimately, is the chipper service schedule determined by an ordinance? Is that something that we control, or is this a thing that can be controlled at the department level? Because, back to the comment I made earlier, I feel like it's a workflow issue, and I'm not really sure how that could be changed and then swiftly.
I would agree that it is a workflow issue unless there was ordinance passed that actually established that. Obviously, I'm not well versed in that yet, but we can certainly check it, and if it's not, we can make the management decision to do that.
Yeah, on another note, I know that we have discussed in the past about an HR department. Is that obviously not an option any longer? Or do you feel that that's a need, sir?
I know we've talked about that, and again, the obviously the issue of hiring a HR person solely would be very expensive at this point in time, but a modification of some duties inside administration, I think that's something that we can analyze here over the next few months and see if we can do that. It would certainly add value to what we do, how we work with our employees, associates, and Mr. Knox is pretty much weighted down with almost everything else, human resource. But I think that there's some ideas that we could probably work on to spread those responsibilities and maybe handle them more efficiently with the staff we have. So I would like to look into that, if y'all would give me the patience to do that.
That'd be great. Thank you very much. And would that be if someone else in administration were to pick that up, would that come with a pay increase?
I think we'd analyze it as we analyze with every job. If there's increased tasks and responsibilities, we certainly want the pay to be reflective of those responsibilities.
Thank you.
I was doing a little research while we were up here because I was pretty sure that I knew that there was an ordinance, and there is from 2018. So there might be more on this, and this is really the one that lays out just the size of the brush piles and the diameter restrictions. I don't see anything yet about the schedule. So that might be something that could be done at the department level more than us having to be involved in that.
Another topic that we haven't touched on yet that I would like to get everybody's opinion on is the holiday pay adjustments that we made with the fire department. I believe we reduced the holiday pay hours down to 10.6 hours per holiday. Is that correct, Mr. Knox? Thinking about that a little further, I personally feel if you are an individual that has to be on shift and working on Christmas Day, or any holiday for that matter, but we'll use Christmas as an example, that there should be, that should be a double pay day where your holiday pay should be more if you are working the shift than if you are sitting at home with your family on that holiday. I understand the holiday pay across the board at 10.6, but out of respect for the individuals that are going to give up that, call it what it is, precious time with their family and loved ones during those holidays, I think it is fair to say that those individuals should see a double pay situation for those days. But I'd like to hear what everyone else thinks about it.
Vice Mayor McDonald, I agree with you. It is a hard sell to get people to come into public service these days and to stay. And something like holiday pay for people who are answering first responder calls and running into fires and leaving their families, which includes, little kids on the holidays. To me, that's worth a lot. And again, this is where I say I would rather cut things that are not human related from the budget if we can, than to take away the quality of life of our first responders. I agree with you on this.
I agree as well with that, and I couldn't said it any better than Commissioner Roberts did just there.
I'm 100% in agreement with that.
Yes.
I think the only thing that I would add, I think that we have to, if we do, I completely agree, but I think that it has to be for everybody. I think it's got to be for all departments.
That's fair.
I get that most
Absolutely.
people are scheduled 8 hours, but if, say, Public Works, if they work 10 hours that day, it's going to have to.
Absolutely.
My idea for that would be the same way that police and fire now have holiday pay. I would put it in the departments that are going to use it. Obviously, there's some like admin, we're not going to use that. Finance, court, some of them wouldn't have it, but anybody that ever works over 8 hours a day, police, Public Works, that's the main ones.
I agree with you.
Other than we'll just have to pad it for those departments. I think fire would be, you could get a good number on that. The others, we'll just, for a year, would kind of be a trial, but I don't have a problem adding that in at all.
And we had talked about it briefly earlier, and you had said that you didn't feel like that would be a significant change to the budget to where it's going to make a new issue or a situation that we would need to adjust for. It's something that can work.
For, yes, for the fire department, I just was thinking about it after that, was that if we're gonna do it for that one, then anybody that works, say the holiday was a Monday, if they were getting paid 24 hours on that, and Public Works guy worked Monday also on the holiday, if they worked 11 hours that day, I think you gotta pay them.
And basically,
11
I mean,
hours
all
instead of 8, you know,
administrative roles they're off on holidays.
it wouldn't affect
It's
that.
really just your first responders and your public works that are sacrificing that time away from their family, and I think the least we could do is compensate them appropriately for that time that they're sacrificing.
Certainly.
Right, but if Public Works came into work on a holiday, that would be because of an emergency situation as well. They're not going to be scheduled to work on a day off anyway, so I don't think that's really going to come to play too often unless there's a catastrophe or something like that. Where fire and police, that's their schedule, especially with fire, they're on, they can't go home, you
Right.
know? So I agree with that.
Mayor Ryle.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to make sure I have clarity, because I think, and let's start particular with fire. We were talking about initially 10.6, but to make sure we understand when we go back to work on the budget, we're talking about on the day of the holiday, all 24 hours at a holiday pay, but those that are not working on the holiday are at the 10.6.
The way I understand it, that's how it currently is, correct? The 10.6 would be for everybody?
In this budget, yes.
In the budget we did, earlier it was 24 regardless if you were on or not. So this is the modification that if you're on duty, you get the 24. If you're off, you're at the 10.6. Or if you're on a 40-hour job, it's an 8-hour deal. In which, I just want to make sure, because I know
Yes.
it sounded like that's what you said. I want to make sure before we put
I
it
think
in
it
the paper.
effectively just makes it double time on holidays for however many hours you work. If you work the whole day, 24 hours, it's 24 hours. If you work an 8-hour shift, it would be 8. If Public Works came in and worked 4 hours, it would just be the 4.
But if you're not working, you just get the holiday pay because everyone gets a paid holiday, but you don't
Right.
get additional pay because you're not on duty.
Okay.
Right.
That's what I understood. Just want to make sure we have that clarified before we start putting it back into the budget.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm good with that. I think the only other thing we would do is just update that in the policy manual, so.
I think something that is not for this budget, but this is very appropriate too, just on this is, do we have something in our policies about something like the ice storm? So how were people who were not supposed to be working compensated when they came in? So do we have something in policies about emergency situations and how they're paid? And are they paid regular pay or are they paid holiday pay? And that's maybe not an answer for today, but I'd really like that to be something that we
They would
know.
pay, they would be paid regular pay unless it was, it would more than likely be overtime. The only thing that would change that is if they had, say, somewhere in that pay cycle, if they had taken AVL, like leave time, then that subtracts away from your, only work time gets you pushed into the overtime category. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And so people who came in for the ice storm, for example, were they were
We're
paid their
likely
regular pay.
overtime
Or
unless they
overtime.
had taken off that period, then
Okay,
it would be no different than just coming in on overtime.
great. Thank you so much.
A quick question, this in reference to what that discussion was just about. This past ice storm, okay, I know all of police were here, all of fire were here, Mr. Richard Ross was here, but I know that because of safety issues, City Hall was closed down. Is there anything to stop those employees that worked here or in another department if they close down because of safety purposes? Are they able to work somewhere else, or do they take a personal day, or are we still paying them as we shut down? Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
My understanding, how y'all have operated here before, is if the decision is made to close the office, that people are paid while they're off and at home. Again, without doing the actual numbers here, I need to do, in Dixon County, whenever we closed, and I did air quotes on that, county government, that means 70% of the people that work for Dixon County are still on duty. Basically, all we're closing down is administrative offices and the courts, things that are not, but everything else is open, that physically capable of. So historically, we've tried to find a better way to do it, but frankly, we can't, because if, in the case of a county, when the mayor makes a decision to close the building, it was by our choice. We actually obviously went through that during COVID also, where we had people, but we also tried to make those that had critical issues they had to work on. They would have like availability to computers, iPads, whatever, to keep the wheels of government turning. So it's something we probably need to take a look here, but I don't know what the raw numbers are, because the administrative staff, police and fire, they're always on duty. So I'm going to have to look at some historical data to see what we've done in the past to make you a good suggestion to move forward in the future.
Well, for this specific issue was we closed City Hall because they were scared about snow up on the roof or ice issues. Would it be advantageous for us as a city to be fiscally responsible and ask those individuals to, hey, maybe relocate to, say, planning and codes to assist them with paperwork or something else? Or that's kind of what I'm asking.
Yeah, and that's a fair question. And again, so many things come into play. Geography, a lot of times, because there's folks that were critical on some days that we would, any of us with four-wheel drives or police or fire, somebody available, go pick them up and we bring them to work and physically get them inside a building. But it's really taken on a case-by-case basis because again, I know the scope of what we do in municipal government versus county government is a little more focused, but I don't think we're going to give you a good answer until I really sit down and look at each position, analyze the departments.
Something that's come up a couple times, and I'm sure we all have our opinions and want to talk about it, is the $5,000 discretionary money that the commissioners can spend on the community, totaling $25,000 for the board. There were some questions from Ms. Cook on where that went last year. I'm just going to go ahead and get that out of the way and give you my answers to those. So last year, I gave the $5,000 to the high school to be specifically used for the sound system at the football stadium. As you all know, most likely, I would imagine everybody knows at this point in time, handful of years ago, the county redid the turf there, and $1 million field, beautiful field. However, our sound system was greatly lacking, and there had been attempts over a couple years to get it addressed. I felt that giving $5,000 to get that jump started or push that across the finish line would be, I guess, money well spent to see that happen, which it did, which I was grateful to see. My thoughts on that and why I felt it was an appropriate decision on my part was just the amount of community that is involved at different events and times throughout the year that experience things that take place at that. Not only is there high school football, but there's also other athletics. There's, track, and the band is out there, and you have middle school football plays there. You have the Titans youth program uses that field. Graduation when the weather cooperates. There's a lot of events that take place there. So I felt that was something that a good percentage of the community would benefit from. I believe all my time, the handful of years that I've been up here now, I have not spent a single dollar out of my travel budget. If I have, forgive me, I've forgotten, but I don't believe I've ever submitted anything. Now, there is the caveat that with travel, I believe it is zero. Training and uniform is also zero as far as what I've submitted. However, if there was expenses that I know at times Miss Carroll will sign me up for an event that may carry a cost, and I'm sure she applies that to that line item, but that's just taking place. That's not, I have, and then as far as uniforms, the only thing I think that would have been spent out of that is I have a Fairview hat and a Fairview polo that I received in a gift bag when I was sworn in. So that's the extent of those for me. On a personal, I understand the discussion around the $25,000. I do think that there's an argument to be made that there's direct positive impact in the community from that. That's not $5,000 and I can decide, I want to take my family on a vacation and that's when we'll put it towards this year. It always goes towards a nonprofit entity within the community that I think, otherwise may not be able to struggle to find those funds or have to go about it other ways and get creative to raise that money. I know the high school is grateful for it. I know the other entities that everyone's going to talk about that they've given money to, I'm sure has been very grateful for receiving that as well. I guess just from my perspective, it's there's not a lot that you do as a commissioner that I can do on my own. It requires a vote that the majority of the board agrees with. That $5,000 is the one and only thing that I can think of that as an elected official, I get to make a decision on where that goes without needing approval from anybody else or a blessing from anybody else, as long as it's within, the appropriate landing zone that money is structured for. But it is nice to be, I guess, have that freedom to decide, this is something that's near and dear to me and I want to affect them in a positive way. So personally, I think, taking that money away, sure, it's going to do some good with the budget, but at the same time, I think it is extremely valuable funds that we can distribute to programs throughout the community that really appreciate it.
And to piggyback on that, to answer Ms. Cook's question as well for me, my $5,000, I gave $3,000 to Fairview High School. That went directly to athletics, and that was just to finalize the speaker system that Vice Mayor McDonald was discussing. I've also put probably about $2,000 of personal funds into that as well. My other $2,000 went to Waves. It's a program down here for handicapped adults, and that was used specifically for a horse program called Saddle Up. And they were very grateful for that, and because of that $2,000, they were able to spend some time doing that. So I'm very grateful for that. As far as travel, I don't think I have used any travel at all since I've been elected. There has been training. We've gone through some trainings that we were asked to do with MTAS that I believe had some funding accordingly. Uniforms, when I first came on, we were given our little bag of goodies. But I did make my own shirts up and hats up on my own. And then just recently, I asked if we had any T-shirts and polos. And I got a polo and a button-down shirt, and I believe 2 button-down shirts, and I believe that was it, maybe 2 polos. But that's what my money was used for, as far as uniform, travel, training, and my $5,000 as well.
I'm happy to go next. I have done no trainings or travel this year. I did do training in my first year, and that was like $100, I think. But a lot of what we do, we don't have to pay registration fees to do. This year, out of my $5,000, I've spent $2,555.56. $1,055.56 went to purchase a new washer and dryer for the life skills class at the high school when it went out. So we were able to get that done within just a matter of days, and they were up and running again, which was a really wonderful thing. So thank you to the taxpayers of Fairview for providing that opportunity. And then the other $1,500 went to the Noah Wild Foundation, which is a foundation that was set up in honor of a child in our city by his family, and it benefits children with swim lessons here in Fairview and then also community in Africa. I thought that was a really important thing to do to support one of our local families and to raise awareness of this foundation to hopefully get other people involved. Vice Mayor McDonald, I agree with your sentiment. I think while we were looking at sort of a scorched earth approach to our budget last week, I thought the BOC should not be left out of it. If we are asking others to give and sacrifice, then we should think about areas where we are too. If we are able to keep the money or a portion of the money to still give back to the nonprofits in the community, then I think that that is a very good idea. And I love hearing about what the other commissioners have done with their funds. I'd love to hear from some of the folks who've received those funds so that we can get those stories back, so that the city knows where their money is going. So I'm glad to hear other perspectives on how this budget could work with that.
Mayor, first off, because I suggested that a minute ago, I don't want to see it go away either, because I really enjoy helping these charities out. First off, this year, $1,000 went to the Friends of Bowie Park, which I'm sure in more than it enhances the park, but I'm sure it helps the children in their classes, and that's what I'm basically for. And one year I give a substantial amount, but I've always kept Friends of Bowie Park in mind. The next thing is Ms. Williams, that usually sits right out here, she's not here tonight. She represents where she gives a scholarship away, the charity that she works for. So I donated $500 to her this year. $500 this year to the Boys and Girls Club. $500 to the softball program, because it helps 2 children get to play softball where they not able to have their uniforms and that type thing that they need to play. Then $2,000 to the historical village, and I've got $500. I can't remember which one it is. Ben, do you remember? And as far as travel and uniforms, I've never used a penny of that at all.
How do we, I guess on Thursday, next Thursday, a week from today, we will have the second and final reading of the budget. What is your goal for tonight? Or how would you like what point would you like us to get to in order to move into Thursday the way you would like to?
I think y'all have done very well getting to the point tonight, and I've got quite a bit of notes. I watched Mr. Knox make those also. So I feel confident we can bring you a budget back that is going to be within some of these parameters. Again, it's obviously going to be your final decision on what we do, but I'm hearing, and I really do appreciate your work tonight, but I'm hearing consensus, I think, of where you want us to be on this. So at minimum, we're going to have a really good starting place next Thursday night, and at the maximum, we may have the very budget you want us to pass when we bring it to you. But during the week, individually, any discussions you'd like to have with me or Mr. Knox, if you please reach out to us, because this will be continue to be a working document until we are ready to present it on Thursday night back to y'all. So any input you can give us. And again, I'm good for any more discussion or input you have tonight. I usually don't get really sleepy until about 9:30, so you've got another 2 hours out of me.
So are you asking us to come back to you guys individually again to go over line by line item, or is this what we're here for tonight, to go by line item to see what will be cut? Because, I mean, honestly, we're asking our citizens, including me and all the people that live here and call this home, that we're asking them to pay extra taxes, and as of right now, the last thing that came to us was like a DEFCON 4 type of tax raise and cutting jobs and everything else. This one here doesn't cut anything, but yet we're still asking citizens to pay more in taxes. Just me, I can't speak for everybody else. I just feel that that's fiscally irresponsible if we just raise taxes and not make any cuts whatsoever, even if it's $500. Like, we have to, I feel it would be in the best interest of our city to do something with this. And I thought that's what we were going to see coming here this evening, is going to see some sort of cut somewhere. Not necessarily, because we've had these conversations, and I sat with you, and I said I never even said anything about employment either, and I wanted to save that with all the employees. But we did look at other items, all $500 items, $2,000 items, all adding up, and all making some sort of significant number. That's kind of what I'm asking, is like, I can't see voting on raising taxes and not cutting anything out of this budget.
I'm in agreement with you, and I think we received some information tonight with some cuts that y'all would like to see, so we can do that. But again, at the end of the day, I can present you a budget, but we need you to approve it, deny it, or modify it. Again, I've met with all of you individually, and along with except Mr. Hall and Mr. Knox. So if you wanted to define, if there's something you want us to define tonight, we're more than glad to listen and put that in the budget tonight and make it fit. But again, it has to be a collective vote. At least 3 of you are going to have to agree on that for it to become the ordinance, become the law. So again, I'm open to any questions, suggestions, or comments you have. So if there's some specific line item you'd like to see go, I'd love to hear that from you. And again, y'all control the debate, but if you all want to debate it, I'll do whatever you like me to do. We can do that ugly budget with all the cuts, or we can do a big budget. So we can fit. I can make anything work. So just where y'all want to be is what I'd like to hear.
Vice Mayor McDonald.
Thank you. Couple things I just want to respond to or add to those last comments, Commissioner Buffalini. So the proposed tax rate increase is in lieu of all those cuts. The cut budget that we discussed the last workshop had no property tax increase. So that was like, this is what happens if we don't do the taxes. So I think, one, to Commissioner Roberts' point that she stated at the beginning of the meeting, the majority of the people that I have heard from have not said, please don't raise taxes. They have said, please don't cut services, for what that's worth. Now, I'm not saying that there's people out there that would feel differently, but the ones I have heard from, that's what they've stated for the most part. There was another point that you made that I wanted to address. Oh, Mayor Ryle, you may want to kind of just walk us back through the recent history of how we got here, but my understanding is prior to when you were asked to have all of the departments put the budget together of cutting everything they would need to cut in order to get us to be level with the revenue that we currently are seeing, that was after you had already asked all of those departments to get skinny. Is that not correct? So the initial budget that we saw first, the first budget, there was already pullbacks from each department where they could without touching personnel. And then we got to the point where that wasn't enough, they would still require a tax increase. So just as an exercise to see what else would need to be cut, that's when we made those personnel cuts. So I guess I say all that to say there have been cuts made in this year's budget already, that just because we don't go with the super cuts that we had at the last discussion, prior to that budget, even that rendition of it, there were pullbacks from each department. Is that fair to say?
I think that's accurate. And Mr. Knox, I'll let him verify the true numbers.
Yes, I think that it's explained in, if you look at each go by each department and then just go down to the bottom, 5 out of the 8 are cuts from last year. You can see fiscal year 25, 26, you can see the total expenditure from that department. Then you see 26, 27, 5 out of the 8 are less than this current year that we're in. Only 3 of them increase. I think the largest one was $50,000 increase for a whole department, so.
I have the exact figure that you give me. You want me to quote it? And the cuts, $192,850.
That was outside of personnel, yes,
Right.
correct.
And I think Vice Mayor's other comment was, how did we get here? Like, what put us in this predicament? Can you answer that, or, and definitely, how do we not ever fall into this again?
Well, and
Yeah,
that-
that's what I'm saying.
Thought of
You-
that.
Just perfectly fine with that question being asked, but that's not, I was talking about the history of this budget, on how this budget, the life cycle of it, and when he originally started it, asked departments to shave down what they could. Then we went back a second time and asked them to cut it down to get it to a specific number based on percentage of what their budget makes up of the overall budget. This is the percentage of the gap that you're required to find, and which led to the reduction in workforce in most of the cases for the departments to get to. Happy to hear him answer the question you have, but just wanted to clarify that. That wasn't exactly what I asked.
on this, what we gave you earlier tonight with the revenue expense comparison back from 21 forward, this is a tool that I use and have used for quite some time, not only with the county's budget, but with a school budget, which is quite large, or at least Dixon County large, at $93 million, is continually analyzing the trends. Again, this is a high-level overview of what we gave you tonight, but we put together a number on the expense lines that are dedicated to each fund, and kind of a poor man's analysis. We do a 5-year average, but we also do a 5-year low on each of these because, again, when we had the revenues that were overestimated this year for building permits by quite a bit, if we had had this trend analysis done, we'd have seen the peak on that money on a 5-year. It would have been an anomaly, and it would have been important to go back to not only the 5-year average, but what's a normal low on that. So doing consistent analysis, not only myself and Mr. Knox, but this is something that we've talked about from the amending standpoint, that we don't wait till a mid-year to year end, because the budget is nothing more than an estimation. It's a living, breathing document that within the first 3 months after the first quarter numbers are done, we can see better where the revenues are and where the expenses are, and we need to amend accordingly on a regular basis, as opposed to hanging on. I think traditionally here had been done mid-year and then done at the end of the year. I would not recommend we do that. So we can measure as we go on a monthly deal, and that's not a criticism of how anybody else has done that in the past, but for non-financial, financial people, it's a good way to measure that. And honestly, and if I'm stepping over the line, y'all tell me to stop, and I will, but bucket borrowing as opposed to purpose borrowing, I would stay away from any borrowing we do where each dollar of the funds are not assigned. The type of borrowing I would recommend you do, if you're buying a fire truck, amortize that over a 10-year period, so you know in 10 years that debt's gone, we can buy another fire truck. Stay consistent with fleet on police vehicles. By skipping a year, they're not getting newer by that. They're being driven every day, and just be consistent. And at times, like we are today, we have to bite the bullet, suck it up, and move forward, but make the hard decisions as we go. And again, I know you make hard decisions. I've had to make hard decisions in my present, soon to be over with job, but just being to the point we take the bad news one bite at a time and not try to swallow the whole bad news elephant at one time, and I think we can move toward that. And that's why, even while we're talking now, not only about balancing this year's budget, a lot of this conversation reflects on what we need to do next year with operating budget and even longer term with the debt budget we have on the FEMA match. So I think we're taking the right steps, going in the right direction. And of course, I get it, this budget's painful. We did one like it that was, we had to do a tax increase 2 years ago in Dixon County, and no one was happy. But the tax increase then, we'd been 5 years. If you moved away from the penny increase, it was a 7% property tax increase over 5 years. That's 1.25% a year, which that was also during the year 2019 with hyperinflation. So again, as a taxpayer, it's never fun to pay more. I don't like writing a bigger check, but there's economic realities out there that we have to deal with, and those are decisions and ideas we present to you for y'all to make decisions based on our analysis. So I think we just start the journey today, get it fixed, and let's not get off path again. Sorry, that was too much probably.
No, that was perfect. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
One thing I would like the board to consider is us staying involved with the Greater Nashville Regional Council. That's only $8,000, and the regional approach and collaboration we have with mayors across this Middle Tennessee area with regards to senior citizens benefits, solid waste, roads, traffic, sewer, TDOT's there. We meet with them every month. I've got a meeting with them coming up this next Wednesday, and the benefit to different grants that would affect our community, which we have used, that directly come from that organization. Plus, if we pulled back from that, we would be the only city not represented there, and I would hate to see that happen. I just see the benefits way outweigh the cost if we were to not be involved in that organization. I have been at all the meetings over the past several years, and it's open to anyone, not just me, but our whole board. It's the third Wednesday of the month at 10 a.m., and people from the community can also attend those meetings and just find out everything that they have to offer all the communities in Middle Tennessee. So that's one thing that I would love to not see cut. I haven't weighed in on my community money that I donate, so I'll just put that out there too. I give $500 to the Fairview Community Theater, great organization that allows children and adults alike to just have a great expression with the theaters and the arts. So they're a 501c3, and so that's one I donate to. I always give a couple $1,000s to Fairview Athletics, and I don't specify that money to go to anything specific. I just tell them to use it as they need to see fit across the board. One thing about athletics, when young people are involved in athletics or band or theater or some extracurricular activity in school, that is a place for them to express themselves and not have idle time, which could lead to something that's not wholesome. And, you know, maybe give them an opportunity to get a great, physical fitness which I believe helps the mind, body, and spirit. So I just believe that when kids are involved in athletics and band and JROTC and all the different items that I see the money that it can go to just really help our youth to have some outlet for their gifts and their talents, and, you know, just give them a place where they can have make friends and just be involved in something that's outside of learning and education, that they can, just have a great experience. So anyway, that's why I do that. And then $2,500 to the Fairview Historical Association. Our property, we're in the midst of a grant right now that we will hear about in August, and that property hopefully will become a home to our farmers market, our Fairview Farmers Market, and the grant right now is being, analyzed by the ones who are going to fund it, hopefully. And I just see that it was a lot of hard work went into that grant, and we should find out about that in August. But that the Triangle property houses the historic Triangle School, which that school, that's where the Fairview Community Theater has all of their plays. They were having those at the high school, but they were charging $4,000 to this program and for each play. And I think it's great that our city can provide them a place to have the plays, and it's no cost to them. And there's a lot of people in our community that are involved in that and enjoy that opportunity. So I don't want to see that go away, but also it's a home to our original schoolhouse, the Jingo Post Office, and the Boone Street Clinic. In hopes when we finish it, this is something that Dr. Neil Rice and I have been working on for 18 years. It'll be home to our farmers market, which will house 24. It will have 24 different spots under roof, and we will not have to worry about it being across the street in a parking lot where it's very dangerous right there because people pulling in and out. I've almost rear-ended somebody who's like, oh, what's going on? And they just stop. So this is going to be an opportunity where they'll have parking and loading and unloading zones, 24 stalls under roof, and just people can provide good, healthy alternatives to fruits and vegetables and meats and all their different things that they provide, as far as that type thing. So I think it's such a wonderful opportunity to get involved and give to that program. As far as, travel and expenses, there's a leadership conference that all of the leaders in Middle Tennessee, plus all the mayors in Middle Tennessee and our county mayor, Rogers Anderson, attends each year. It's somewhere, I think, around $3,000 or something. It won't be in this upcoming budget because they did have 2 leadership conferences back to back, but typically they're every other year. So this coming year, it will not be in the budget because they're not having that conference this year. They're going back to the every other year. And then there's just smaller conferences that are held throughout the year that the mayors all attend to get information, collaboration, just different opportunities to bring back to our community for, benefit that all benefit our community. So that's, I think that's everything there. So that's my part of it, but just to recap, GNRC, I feel like that's a very important line item to keep.
Mayor,
Commissioner Hall?
my last 500 was a very good Friday afternoon to go over and watch the high school band practice for competition that they were going to in Columbia that weekend. It just so happens to come in at a good time for them because they were short on gas money to get there down there. But that was part of the reason why I would like to not see this taken away from us, because that's where we do good things for our children in this town. Thank you.
Thank you.
I spaced out and forgot to look that up, but that is what I did find.
I do have a question. I'm glad you brought up the historic village. That is a thing that I had a question about when we met before, because it's a matching grant that we've applied for that's under review now. And I believe, and maybe you can help me with the numbers on this, but part of what we would match with is the collateral, that's the value of the property. But then there would be money owed by the city on top of that to cover our half of the grant. And I think, and I didn't go back in my notes with the numbers, so please help me if I'm wrong, but I think our matching is maybe 1.5 million and the property is worth 750,000. And I would like to be reminded about the numbers and where that extra money is supposed to come from. Because while we're talking about budget, and then to say, if that would be something that we'd have to match, then we need to have a serious conversation about that. This is something that's offered by TDEC. From what I understand, this grant is something that you could apply for every year. But if we were to receive this grant, which, believe me, I love the idea of this project, but we are sitting here talking about raising taxes. So we need to know how much is that amount if we were to get it, and where is that budgeted from, please? And if anybody on the board remembers better than I do, I can search back at my notes, but I don't remember that.
So it's a 2.2 million total. 1.1 million is our part. 700 and some odd thousand is the value of the property, which left the rest of it, which was what was talked about, is using tree bank money for the path. I mean, it's just, there's all kinds of opportunities as a part of this project to use tree bank money. With the money that's coming into the tree bank, I don't see that to be an issue, but that's up to the board. So.
I was not part of planning for that, but that was what I understood to be the goal, was to use tree bank money for that. That does not change anything about this budget other than you would see right now there's, I would have to look at it, it's in parks, but it would change the, whatever that portion is would be an expense listed under the Parks Department in tree bank.
Thank you. And I did find my notes. It was March 2nd. Parks and Landscape Board meeting was the last time that I see it in my notes. 50/50 grant, 2.3 million total for the project, 1.15 from TDEC, 1.15 from the city. And so again, I think the property was coming in around 750,000, which would leave, what, 400 some $1,000 come, and that could come out of the tree bank fund without an issue.
Correct. That I was just trying to. I guess my main thing, maybe I didn't say it well, was it. If that money, if that 400,000 was spent out of the tree bank, it would not affect anything other than the tree bank account. It wouldn't affect the a $400,000 expense out of the tree bank account would not affect any other operation at all, other than obviously the money coming from there.
Sure. And then we don't know, the balance on the tree bank fund is a little bit of a moving target, and I know that there's some money that's coming toward it, but like all projects, things don't always land where they're originally estimated. So I guess I just want to make sure that we're not going to exceed what we have available in the tree bank fund, and that we won't be paying any more taxpayer dollars into this.
According to my numbers, we have enough to add to the 750 for the matching grant and also pay for the cleanup in the park.
Okay.
I've already gone over those numbers, but I mean, verify me, but what I've gone over, we have enough money, and that's not even including the two projects that have already committed the money to the tree bank that's coming. So even if for some reason they didn't happen, my calculations show that we have enough for both.
Okay, great. I want to make sure we have that conversation out there, that we're not going just off of my memory alone, and just be absolutely sure. Thank you.
Is there anything else from staff or board? All right, okay. So we will adjourn our workshop, and we will have our meeting, let's see, June 18th, am I right on that? Yes, 1 week from tonight will be the June 18th Board of Commissioner meeting, starting at 7 p.m., where we will be taking our public hearing. And that means anybody from the public who wants to come to that meeting and speak, you're not timed. It's a public hearing. You can give us your thoughts before we make our final vote on our city, Fairview City's budget. Thank you to the staff, Mayor Ryle. Y'all have done a great job putting this together. Ben, I appreciate you. You've worked really hard with Mayor Ryle, and I think y'all have brought us a lot of good information. So with that, we will adjourn.